welcome all of those that are watching to another episode of the Shook Sports Takes podcast. This is another one of the um, early opinions on every NBA team episodes. Today will be the Central Division. For those of you who aren't very good with divisions, the Central Division is one of the divisions in the Eastern Conference. Today will be over the Bulls, the Cavaliers, the Pistons, the Bucks, and the Indiana Pacers. This has been um, almost a surprising division in multiple aspects, and there's a lot to go over. This probably so far has been my favorite division in terms of when you look at the teams, what is there to talk about. This is one that I had a lot of fun getting some ideas down for, and I feel pretty well informed. I made an effort to watch every team play at least a couple of games this far, but I've watched every team here play several games. So I'm excited, and let's get right into it. We'll start with the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls have been probably the NBA's biggest surprise, biggest good surprise so far this season. They sit with a 6-4 record. They start to cool off a little bit. They started really hot. They started 5-0 before they dropped to the Knicks, and then they've lost four of their last five. So starting to cool off a little bit now. Granted, they've played the last three games without Josh Giddey. And that one win in that time period was a ridiculous 20-point fourth quarter comeback against the Philadelphia 76ers. But there is a lot to talk about with this team. I said they are certainly the most unexpected surprise. I don't think anybody saw the Bulls starting this hot. And I don't know if it will continue. They've already started to cool off a little bit. But there are a lot of aspects to this Bulls team that I like. Now, the clear and obvious one being Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey, whether you like him or not, I know he has his off-the-court things, but we're going to talk strictly basketball here. He has been absolutely hooping. There's no doubt about it. And I think when people saw this OKC-Chicago trade, people knew that Josh Giddey was good and he could play make and he could do a lot of good things. But I don't think anybody saw Josh Giddey ever being a superstar for an NBA team. And that is exactly what he's become in Chicago so far this season. Last season, Josh Giddey averaged 14, 8, and 7. Those are really solid role player numbers, right? He's obviously able to do more than just score the ball or more than just create. Not to mention, he's a very solid defender. He's not, an incredible defender, but he can get the job done, guarding a good offensive player. This season, Josh Giddey is averaging 21, 10, and 9, and I believe that 9 is almost averaging a triple double. I think it's very close. He's been insane. He's been really, really good. And again, he's continued to be solid on defense. Now, I know everyone's going to want to reference the DeAndre Hunter ankle breaker that has actually caused damage to Josh Giddey's ankle, and he's missed the last few games. But outside of that singular highlight play, he's been pretty solid on defense. His numbers have shot way up. He's seeing more shooting attempts without Zach LaVine being there, and he's really just taken on this kind of superstar do-it-all role. And he looks great, man. He's definitely playing at an all-star caliber level. And there's just so much to like about the way he's been playing. He's also creating for his teammates. He's not just scoring the ball himself. So while that number's gone up, he's also averaging 2 more assists a game, closer to 3 assists a game. But he's not the only one. Vucevic is still shooting 50% from 3. Any big man that can space the floor at that efficient of a level is great. He's averaging, I think, close to 17, 18 points as well. He's giving him 17 and 10 on a night, and he's just continued to be extremely valuable. I don't know how long it's going to take for teams to realize that they have got to start making an effort to account for Vucevic from behind the arc, because it still feels like he gets a lot of wide open attempts or a lot of semi-guarded attempts, and he will make you pay. He's very consistent from 3, obviously. He makes every other one, shooting 50%. But the biggest addition and why I think Chicago have made such a jump outside of Josh Giddey is that Matas Buzelis is taking a massive leap. I mean, there was a lot of hype around Buzelis in the idea that he was very athletic, and it's kind of been a trend over the last few years too. When you find yourself in this just, late in the lottery or just outside the lottery, you you want to bank more on the things you can't teach, right? So sheer athleticism, natural instinct, and size have really come in. And it started a lot with the Thunder when they took Chet Holmgren, and then they took um, Topic, I think. They started taking just the guys that they're assuming that you can teach the fundamentals to a high enough level, but you're banking and taking the things that you can't teach to a guy who has the fundamental skills, right? And so that's kind of where the wave started. And Buzelis is one of those guys. We knew he had the raw athleticism, and a lot of things that you couldn't teach. But it was about applying the basketball aspects, and it's turned around really quickly. That now coming into his second season, he's scoring much more consistently. He's looking at himself shooting 40% from three, which is great. Something I wouldn't have said he would have been doing last year. Yeah, he's able to be efficient in his scoring now, which is really helping the Bulls. And he's combining that with his athleticism and his basketball IQ. He's been very smart with the way he's played, and it's been very critical to the Bulls' success. He looks like a great piece on both sides of the ball. Really, his sheer athleticism make him pretty good on defending or when defending. So he's been great for the Bulls. You know, they're really playing well. They were playing very well. They started very hot, and again, it's kind of tailed off here in the last few games. Ayo Dosumo, still really doing a great job defensively. He's a great perimeter defender. We know this. It's just about, they don't have a super deep bench. Patrick Williams still struggling. Kevin Huerter is not shooting the ball great. He has his nights where he shoots really well, but there's times more often than not that he's not shooting that well. So, it is interesting to see if that can if the bench can step up in when needed. But the biggest thing for me is that this Bulls team is still playing without Kobe White. Kobe White last season, once Zach LaVine was traded, I think he averaged 22, something around that. He was scoring the ball really efficiently, starting to take over as the primary ball handler, and the athletic scorer of the team. And that does make me think, well, now if Kobe White comes back, maybe you see Josh Giddey's numbers drop a little bit here and there, but I think they can certainly coexist, and I think he makes this Bulls team that much more dangerous. And that's if they decide to keep him. There's been several talks over the last few years about Chicago trading Kobe White. I wouldn't be super opposed to them doing that, because I think strengthening the bench, not only strengthening the bench, but bringing in somebody that fits so that you're not taking the ball out of Giddey's hands as often. So maybe a really strong 3-and-D wing, something like that could be an interesting move. But if they decide to keep Kobe White, I don't think it hurts them in the slightest. I think Josh Giddey can continue to play the way he's playing. So really, when it comes down to overall, is that I think this Bulls team is going to be better than originally expected. They might be high play-in, low playoff. I know I'm going to say that a lot about a lot of the teams in the East, and obviously some of them will straight make the playoffs, and some of them will probably just end up missing the play-in. But that's the kind of range I see it. There is a chance that if they can get back rolling again, I know they've had a tough few games, but we could see this team sitting maybe a 4 seed with the way the East shapes up. That would have to have some things like, the Magic would have to continue to struggle. The Heat would have to cool off a little bit, and the Sixers would have to, deal with some of the injuries that they've dealt with in the last few years for that to happen. But I do think there's a possibility that the Bulls are a true playoff team this season. And we get to the 8-5 Cleveland Cavaliers, who were coming into the season a general consensus to be top 2 in the East and one of the favorites to win the conference, which I stand by. I think that they are one of the best rosters in the entire East, and their record does somewhat reflect that. I think they're sitting 4th or 5th at the immediate moment. They're coming off a loss to the Raptors, which would be the second time they've lost to the Raptors. Now, if you had watched my first video of this series of the NBA takes so far this season, which if you haven't, I do encourage you to go watch. I would really appreciate that. But I spoke about the Raptors, and for me, a good team losing to the Raptors is probably just a factor of Scotty Barnes, R.J. Barrett, and Brandon Ingram all having a good game. Now, This this last loss from the Cavs wasn't that. Jakob went for 20, and um, it was just like another night where the Raptors were hot, and when the Raptors are hot, they're probably going to beat good teams. And so I'm not really concerned with either of those losses. And then they lost to the Knicks in a really close battle. They lost to the Boston Celtics in a night where the Celtics just got really hot. I think Peyton Pritchard had a great game that night. And then they lost an absolute thriller to the Miami Heat, which what can you do? Donovan Mitchell, fantastic in that game. So that's where I get to, is that when they play these games, a lot of their wins are coming because Donovan Mitchell is playing like an absolute superhero. 46 points in the win against the Sixers, 35 in the game against the Pistons, 35 in the game against the Nets. He's averaging 30 points, shooting 40% from three and 51% from the field. Donovan Mitchell has been absolutely elite this far, and it feels like they are very reliant on his performances. And is it stable? I'd say yes, because Donovan Mitchell has proved he can do it at this level very consistently, almost night in and night out. But what scares me is that if Donovan Mitchell only goes for 20, which is still a respectable night, they're probably not going to win unless somebody else really picks up the slack. Now, granted, Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen haven't played every game this season. Darius Garland has barely played. I think he's played 3 or 4 games. DeAndre Hunter just got healthy. So there's not really, I don't know if they've had a game where they've been fully healthy yet this season. And once Garland is back in playing real minutes, back into the swing of things, they're going to be less reliant on Mitchell because they won't have to be so reliant. So this early, it does kind of check out that it's been so down to Donovan Mitchell, and he's been great, and he's done his job. He's carried the team. And I shouldn't say carried the team because Evan Mobley is still averaging 20 and 8 with 1.5 blocks a game. He's been fantastic on both sides of the ball again, and his connection with Jarrett Allen makes them so dangerous. But it does feel like games are going to be closer than they should be, or they're only going to be in games because of the way Donovan Mitchell has been playing. And like I said, you can rely on a guy like that because he is so consistent, but it gets to a point where you start to wonder how long can he keep playing and keep pulling out results for them. So it is kind of a live and die by it situation. But other than that, the Cavs have had some issues. Now, DeAndre Hunter has really struggled from behind the arc, which is unfortunate, but it's something that I just feel he will figure out. He's a great defensive player. He's kind of meant to play that 3-and-D role, but this season he's been very, very good at when his three is not falling, being aggressive, going to the basket. We saw what he did to Josh Giddey. I already mentioned it earlier in this video. It was nasty, but he is really, really doing a good job at penetrating and finding ways to score that aren't just letting the three fly. And that was something I felt like he kind of struggled with a little bit in Atlanta, was sometimes he was just kind of willing to shoot it until it went in, right? Shoot the three until it started to fall. Whereas now he is maybe it's being coached, or maybe he's just relying more on his ability to get to the basket and score in other ways. And it's been very pivotal in some of these games. Thinking the game against Chicago, I think he went for 22, something like that. He was really, really good in that game. So DeAndre Hunter's been good. His three will start falling soon. I have to imagine it's only a matter of time because he's pretty lethal from behind the arc. We've seen it time and time again, especially when he was in Atlanta. So I'm not too worried about that. The real thing that I am worried about with this Cleveland team is, aside from the fact that they haven't been healthy all year, is when you look at the bench. So I have notes here just because I had to remember it all. But when you look at the bench, you think last year Cleveland's bench was one of the better units in the NBA. Ty Jerome, Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, Sam Merrill were all part of this unit. There's only Sam Merrill is on that roster now. Merrill and Dean Wade are the two guys that we've seen consistently come off the bench. They just aren't really offering very much. Merrill is very inconsistent. If he is hot, he is going to be an issue to see come off the bench. And then Dean Wade, again, he gets his nights where he shoots the ball really well and he takes 7 threes and makes 6 of them. and they haven't had Max Strus this season, who Max Strus can be pretty effective. But outside of that, man, there's not a whole lot going on with this bench, and it's hurt because Ty Jerome was so pivotal a lot of the time last year. Karis LeVert had a bunch of different games where I thought he was huge in their success to winning. Isaac Okoro coming off the bench and continuing to be that 3-and-D player. He started a lot last year until DeAndre Hunter got there in the trade with Atlanta. But I'll give credit to Lonzo because Lonzo has continued to do his thing playmaking wise, but he has not shot the ball well in the slightest. I mean, it's been really ugly for Lonzo. I think he started the season like 0 for 8 from behind the arc. So it's been pretty poor in shooting wise, but his playmaking has still continued to be really good. So I will give Lonzo his flowers for that. But the bench unit from Cleveland that has been really strong in the last 2 years has struggled a lot this season. And, one of the things I think you might be able to do here is I'm a big fan of Tyrese Proctor. I thought he was really good playing at Duke, and I would like to see him be given more minutes and almost play that Ty Jerome style where he's coming in and he's just letting the three fly. And you know what? If he's hot early, keep getting him the ball, and if he's not, so be it. Then you lean on your superstars like you've continued to do. But it kind of feels like Sam Merrill is the only one they're trusting off the bench to come in and consistently shoot the ball. And Sam Merrill isn't knocking them down consistently, and it's starting to hold this team back just a little bit. So I'm interested to see what adjustments Kenny Atkinson makes. I think he's a fantastic head coach. There's no denying it. And this Cleveland team is still going to be, at the very worst, the 3 seed in the East, I think. If that, they're probably going to be the 2 seed. It's going to be in that range, right? They might be the best team in the East. We'll see. But they will be in that top 3. I have no doubts about it. Really, for me, it is just about consistency. And really quickly before I wrap it up on Cleveland, I do want to give out a shout out to Jalen Tyson, who is averaging 11 on 46% from 3. That has been a piece to their bench. I almost forgot. That has been a piece to their bench that I think has been absolutely critical. He's looked great. And when he's been called upon to make big plays, he's done so. So credit to him. He's been fantastic. He's actually started a fair few games when DeAndre Hunter was out. He's kind of playing that 3-and-D role. He's looked great. So we'll give him a lot of credit for doing his job really well. But yeah, this Cleveland team, they're going to be a top 3 seed. It's only a matter of how well Donovan Mitchell has to play in order for them to be there. That would bring us to the Detroit Pistons, who have been flying so this far. And, I don't feel like there is a better fan base that deserves some good basketball that they haven't gotten in a very long time more than the Detroit Pistons. You saw how sick the atmosphere was in their home playoff games against the Knicks last season. They were awesome. So it's really great to see a basketball team in Detroit balling like the Pistons are at the very moment. It just couldn't happen to a better fan base at the moment, I don't think. Cade Cunningham's dealing. That's really what it comes down to. They're sitting with the best record in the East at 10-2. They lost the opening night to the Bulls, and then they've only dropped to the Cavs in a game where Donovan Mitchell had a great game. So it's been a lot of improvement for this Pistons team. Jalen Duren has really continued to be such a threat, specifically in the pick and roll on offense. He's such a lob threat. He's constantly having to be thought about from a defensive perspective, and he and Cade run that pick and roll so well. He's just an elite rebounder as well. I mean, he's averaging a double-double. It's really impressive. He went for 20 and 20 the other night. He just is dominating. Of course, with the help of Cade Cunningham, who is also almost averaging a double-double, 27.5 and 9.9 assists, we're going to call it. 27 and 10. Cade Cunningham is ridiculous. Now, I said at the start of the year that I did think that there was a situation this season where Cade Cunningham could win MVP if the Pistons really went and surprised teams and were sitting in that top 1 seed in the East. And he continued to play and take even that step from superstar to one of the best in the league. And he's not made me look crazy, which is great. I really appreciate that. But no, really, I mean, Cade Cunningham is elite. He is a top 5 point guard in the NBA, and it's almost undeniable at this point. The guy is so good. shooting well. He's I think he's what 6'5". He's bullying smaller guards in the paint. He's consistently knocking down his 3-pointer. Cade Cunningham is just a nightmare to have to defend, and it has made this Detroit team dangerous. Now, the other thing that's been great for Detroit is the role players. Asor Thompson's still one of the best perimeter defenders in the entire NBA. He's looking better on offense, shooting just under 50%. He is really using his athleticism, continuing to use his athleticism to be a factor around the rim. That's on both sides of the ball as well. So that's been great. Tobias Harris still picking up slack when it's needed. If Cade is having a bad night, Tobias Harris is finding ways to score. Karis LeVert has been huge off the bench coming over from Cleveland. He, again, someone that you need points. You need a spark off the bench. It's coming there. Ron Holland, Isaiah Stewart, done their jobs. Duncan Robinson filling in the Malik Beasley role. They knew they wanted it when Malik Beasley had that issue and they couldn't re-sign him. They went for Duncan Robinson instead. He's not been, as good as I think Duncan Robinson can be, because I think if he could just, he always has his nights where he's great and he'll go for like 27, making 7 threes or something stupid. But it was always about consistency for Duncan Robinson. If he can consistently provide 12 points, he can be a factor. And he's a good defender as well. So it's nice to have a guy like that in this rotation. But then they're having guys step up. Dennis Jenkins had not really played at all until the other night, where he had 24 points and made 2 threes. Originally, I thought it was just the one to force overtime. He made 2 threes against the Wizards in 2 seconds to force overtime. It was ridiculous. I mean, that guy, and then he played really well, even though the following night when they played and they beat the Spurs. He's been a really nice surprise. He's been great. I think he'll continue to see a big role. He's shooting really well, and he's playing good defense. There's just a lot of guys on this Pistons roster that are doing a really great job, and it makes them so difficult because even when Cade Cunningham isn't in the game, you're not able to take it over because all of these guys are doing different things. And they look like one of the best rosters in the NBA, certainly in the East anyway, with the way that they're playing. They're all getting their jobs done. I stand by the fact that they will be a top 3 seed in the East. This is something I said at the start of the year. I think I really said top 4, but I can certainly see it being top 3. It might be over one of New York or Cleveland. The scariest part is Jaden Ivey is yet to play. Jaden Ivey got hurt last season. He missed a lot of time at the back half of last year, and he's not played at all. I almost wonder how Jaden Ivey fits in, because he will. I think that'll force a lot of shifting in this lineup, and I think Jaden Ivey, the nice thing is they won't need him to come in and score as much as he was before he got hurt, because he was playing pretty well before he did injure himself. But he is pretty impactful when he's given the opportunity to take a lot of shots. So I don't know how quickly he can get adjusted for having sat out so long, but Jaden Ivey is going to be a pretty key contributor to the success of this Pistons team, and the fact that they could only get better is not something that the teams in the East will want to hear. So the Pistons have been great. There's not a lot to disregard about this team. They're really doing a great job. It's not like they've just battled through an easy schedule. They've played a lot of really strong teams. They have a lot of wins over a lot of really strong teams. So at the end of the day, I think this Pistons team is legit. And we'll see if they can continue to be legit enough to say that they might be finals contenders. The 2025-2026 Indiana Pacers are a very different conversation than any team we've talked about so far this episode. They sit 1-11, 1-10 at the immediate moment. They are dead last in the East, and it has been just a total nightmare. Now, it has nothing to do with the fact that this roster is not good, because this roster is very good. The first thing that came to my mind when I sat down to talk about the Pacers was, I don't know how many of you will remember the 2019-2020 Warriors, but Klay Thompson was coming off that ACL tear in the finals against Toronto. Kevin Durant had left. Steph Curry got hurt super early in the season. I think Draymond missed a lot of time. And it was so obvious that the Warriors are not going to suck again next year, right? And they ended up being in the playoffs the next year. They won the ship 2 years later. Um, but sitting like that team won 15 games. That is how I feel about the Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton probably won't play all year. Andrew Nembhard, who's somebody I was super high on coming into the year, I said there's a chance that Andrew Nembhard could be an all-star. And I said that in my hot takes video that's on this channel. Again, go check that out if you haven't seen it. But he has not played out that way so far, but he also was hurt in the very first game of the season. Benedict Mathurin, somebody who was scoring the ball really, really well for this Pacer team, has missed a ton of time. TJ McConnell just started playing games for this team. They have just been so injury-ridden on top of Tyrese Halliburton that there's no way this team is going to win a lot of games. I mean, they lost to the Brooklyn Nets, who hadn't won a single game. And it has just been a total nightmare, really, watching them. The only bright spot at the immediate moment is Pascal Siakam, who is continuing to just go out there and hope. He can't do it all by himself. That's why they're not winning games. But that's not a knock on him. He's going to be an all-star again this year. He's one of the more enjoyable players. He's got kind of an old-school vibe to him in that he's not shooting a lot of threes. And he's not really getting downhill, but that mid-range game and that deep post game is so pure. He's a lot of fun to watch. And yeah, I mean, it is very obvious that the Indiana Pacers next season, when they get healthy, are going to go right back to being contenders, right? They're going to push in the East. But, man, this year it's going to be rough. And the nice thing is that means they're going to be a lottery team, right? And they might end up with one of the best picks. They could end up with the best pick of the NBA draft this season. I don't know if there's any elite prospects. I'm not super tapped in with college basketball at the immediate moment or anything overseas. But, yeah, I mean, they could end up with a key piece that will help them contend and get them over the limit. Maybe they end up being the 26-27 NBA champions. But this season is not it. Obi Toppin has missed time, too. That was one I left off the list. He's barely played. It just feels like they cannot catch a break with injuries, and that was exactly how that 2019-2020 Warrior team was. We all know they're going to be great turnaround next year, but this year they're going to end up in the lottery, and they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league, and there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. There's nothing Rick Carlisle can do about it. There's nothing Pascal Siakam can do about it. It's just going to be how it's going to be. So it's a really unfortunate situation for the poor Pacers, but yeah, I mean, Aaron Nesmith has continued to be a factor. He's still a great defender. He's still shooting pretty well, but I think the one game that they won, it's because he also added 25 points for Pascal Siakam, but he's not built to be a guy that's going to give you 20 points every night. So you're not going to put too much pressure on him to really step up and start scoring. That's what I was expecting Andrew Nembhard to do, but he can't do that because A, he's barely played, and B, they're just throwing their best defender at him. I think if they could get fully healthy, they're not going to end up being the worst team in the East. I don't think there's no way. And I say fully healthy, excusing Tyrese Halliburton. If they can get Mathurin, McConnell, Toppin, and Nembhard all healthy at the same time to add to Siakam and Mathurin, they're going to win some games. But it's just about the fact that they can't catch a break right now. And that's all this is going to come down to. I do think that they had some guys who, when I've asked to step up, have done a pretty solid job in playing their role. You've got Jay Huff, who came over from Memphis. I think he's done a solid job. Jarris Walker is asked to take a lot more shots, and while he's not making a lot of shots, he's not scoring, he's still handling that role pretty well. I think Tony Bradley and Ben Shepherd have done good jobs as well, Jackson as well. But these guys aren't going to come in and start scoring the ball at a ridiculous rate, maybe on a night here and there, but it's just not going to be consistent from their scoring, and it does mean that they're going to end up being bottom feeders to middle of the pack outside of the play-in. So it's going to be a rough year. I think at best they could squeeze into one of those bottom play-in spots. I do not think this team makes the playoffs. I don't think there's any way that this team makes the playoffs, and if they're smart, they just take. I'm not encouraging anyone to tank, but take a year off. Get a really nice piece in the draft, and then go full steam ahead 26, 27. But they will be back. It's just going to be a rough year for Pacer fans is what it's going to come down to, unfortunately. To cap off the Central Division, we have the Milwaukee Bucks, who, again, are just a really interesting situation. Now, at the time of recording, they sit at 7-5, and their last loss was to the Charlotte Hornets. I think that sound, I know that sounds crazy, but Giannis did not play, and this is what I want to talk about because if Giannis somehow at any point this season misses a section of games, I don't think they'll win a single one. I am so serious. I think without Giannis Antetokounmpo, this roster is awful. Like really bad, and he has been absolutely carrying them. He's trying to prove that he thinks what he knows to believe that he is the best player in this league. Now, I'm not saying he is. I'm saying that's what he's trying to prove, and that's how he's playing. He is dominating teams, and he is the only reason that they are winning games. When they played the Knicks, Ryan Rollins, 20, hold on, I have it written down. He had 25 against the Knicks. Then he had 32 against Golden State. So if somebody else steps up, they're going to beat teams because Giannis is consistently going for 35, almost 40 on nights, and he's consistently scoring 30 points, averaging 33, 12, and 6, just doing it absolutely everything for this team. But again, he sits out one game against the Charlotte Hornets, and they lose because there's no scoring on this team without Giannis because they're so concentrated on you. The reason Ryan Rollins has been able to step up and have big games is because everybody's so worried about Giannis because he is the only threat. So my advice to teams playing the Milwaukee Bucks, if Giannis is going to go for 50, let him go for 50. Make sure nobody else on that team steps up and has a good night. You will beat them. I promise. Giannis, as great as he is, if nobody else can score the ball, I'm not saying, give Giannis a free lane, but I'm saying do not be so worried about holding Giannis to as few points as possible because he's going to score anyway. You have to eliminate any other help. You have to eliminate all help to Giannis, and you will be able to stop this team. They have 5 losses on the season now, and the Rockets did this really well. Nobody else stepped up when they played the Rockets, but Giannis still had a great game. And that's why the Rockets were able to come back and win the game because they cut off any help he had, any other scoring. Now, what is my message to the Milwaukee Bucks? One of Kyle Kuzma and Miles Turner have got to be more consistent. They are both averaging less than 15 points a game. Miles Turner's not shooting the 3-ball well. Kyle Kuzma isn't doing anything on the offensive end very well. And it's really frustrating considering one of those two is meant to be your second option. They signed Miles Turner for a lot of money, something that I thought was kind of crazy to begin with. Because in Indiana, we had known Miles Turner to be a very good shot blocker and a pretty decent floor spacing big man who can shoot the 3 on a good night. But he didn't ever show a large amount of consistency, so relying on him to be your second best scorer was kind of crazy to me. And I liked it more before Dame was gotten rid of. I know Dame wasn't going to play anyway this season, but I was thinking, okay, if Dame has 2 more years in him, there's a situation here where Milwaukee could make a real run. But the expectation of Miles Turner was to be a better Brook Lopez, and he's not really done anything to help them. He just feels the exact same as when Brook Lopez was here, because the shooting hasn't been consistent. He's not scoring a lot of points. So really, if Giannis can't go for 50 or 45 or 40, and nobody else steps up, this team's not going to win basketball games. So I think when they play great teams, they're not going to win. I know they beat the Knicks in the East, and that game was because Ryan Rollins stepped up and had 25 points. At that point, it was a career high before he went and set a new career high against the Golden State Warriors, another game that they won. But it's going to require somebody consistently every night. It doesn't matter who it is. Somebody's going to have to go and give him at least 25 to help out Giannis. And if Giannis gets no help, this team is just not going to win. And it's so funny because I still think they're going to make the playoffs. They won't have to fight through the play-in because guess what? Giannis is going to get it done every night. He is one of the most consistent scorers in the NBA, and to go with that, he's a great rebounder, and he can create shots for his team because it's really easy when the whole defense is willing to collapse and all you got to do is kick the ball out, right? But yeah, I mean, somebody's going to have to start being more consistent. Maybe they make a big move at the deadline. I do think that early in the season, Gary Trent and A.J. Green were helping out a lot. They're 3-point shooting. Gary Trent started the year really hot. He's cooled down since from behind the line, and A.J. Green continues to do his thing, shoot a lot of open threes, and he's knocking them down at a pretty consistent rate. It's not been anything super special, but it's worth noting that they have pretty solid perimeter shooting. They just need a guy that can consistently score the ball for them at a rapid rate. So this is my idea, is that I think by the deadline, this will be in a video when I get to Washington, that I don't think C.J. McCollum ends up being a Wizard at the deadline. If I am the Milwaukee Bucks and we're continuing to see this really nasty streak of we're losing games if no one else steps up and it can't all be on Giannis, I'm going to make it a move for CJ. I don't know what he would cost. I can't imagine he'd cost anything super crazy considering the fact that he's 33, 34 years old. But McCollum can still give you 25 a night pretty consistently. That would be the move I would make. Just get somebody there to help out Giannis. I mean, and I know it sounds kind of similar to the Damian Lillard trade. Now, you have to note that this trade would not be anywhere near as expensive, and it is a win now move, because you don't know how much longer Giannis is going to be here. They've talked about trades multiple times. We've getting to a point where that the end of that contract is getting nearer and nearer, and you just wonder. I know he continues to say he's happy in Milwaukee, this and that, but I don't know if a guy like that wants to not be winning games. I do think Giannis stays a Buck his whole career, but you have to make sure you put him in a situation where he's still willing to be here. And I think that starts by getting him somebody else that is consistently going to score the ball. And I think C.J. McCollum could be. There's plenty of other options I'm sure you could find, but I think C.J. McCollum is a very interesting one. But yeah, man, overall, Giannis means that they will make the playoffs. They will be a threat. They won't be easy to beat in the playoffs, but we saw the Pacers dismantle them last season when Dame got hurt, and they're in the same situation now because they don't have Damian Lillard. But the only way I really see this team making any form of push to either A, the top of the East, or B, in the playoffs, is if Miles Turner or Kyle Kuzma start to figure it out and really start to score the ball efficiently and consistently, which I just don't think is going to happen. So really, it's going to lay on the shoulders of a guy like Ryan Rollins to start scoring the ball as consistently as it has been. And I just don't know if that'll happen. But if they can get an extra score, this is a very different conversation. So I said in the first one, I might do this again at the midpoint or the All-Star break, and then again at the end of the season right before the playoffs. And so we'll see how this tracks for Milwaukee if this continues to happen. But that is the Central Division episode for you done. Please feel free to let me know what you think. What do you think I was right about? What you think I missed on? Love to hear some feedback. Yeah, that's it for this episode of the Shook Sports Take podcast. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one.